Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Recruitment Uncensored with me, your normal host. You're probably sick of me by now, Kate. And I've got another amazing female founder on with me this morning. We've got a run of female founders joining me over the next few weeks, actually. I've got Kerry-Ann Hargreaves of Consult. Have I got that right? Consult KA.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I was meant to write it down and we got so busy chatting before we went live. I actually nearly forgot to go live then as well. I was just saying when we were in the green room, this is actually the smartest I think I've ever been. I'm actually wearing a blazer for Recruitment Uncensored. I'm normally like hair up, tracksuit on, but I had a meeting this morning, so I've come straight to it and actually made an effort for once. But today, Kerry-Ann's come on. I'm really excited about this chat. We're going to be talking about basically being valuable in 2025. So recruitment without the rubbish. And we've been having a really good chat in the green room about our views on things. So I'm excited for us to cover this off. But get involved as well. You've got the comment section. If you want to get involved in something we're talking about, maybe you might not like what we're saying. You might like what we're saying. You might have a question. Check it in. Anything I've got time for, I'm going to bring it up as normal. But yeah, I'm going to get cracking because half an hour, as you know, goes very quickly on the show, and we've got a lot to cover off. So, what I wanted to ask you first, Kerry-Ann, is, I mean, obviously the pandemic, yeah, it's been and gone, but we're still sort of having the effects of that, aren't we, in our industry? So, what have you seen to be sort of the positive, but also the negatives effect on the recruitment world?
So I'm going to twist it and I'm actually going to go negative first, if that's okay. Let's get the bad stuff
No, I
out
like
of
that. We can end on a positive then, can't
Yeah,
we?
and then let's end on a positive note. So from recruitment specific, from a negative perspective, I think it's the fact that we lost so many talented recruiters in the industry. You know, people that have done more than 10 years, done more than 15 years, done more than 5 years. And I think why that's so negative is they're the guys and the girls with the relationships, with the knowledge, you know, and speaking candidly, with a lot of the passion as well for what we do, because recruitment isn't rocket science, but it's certainly not the easiest job in the world.
No, it's not.
And it's based on some serious foundations of having relationships, you know, and kind of having that trusted kind of knowledge and reputation of what you do and how you do it. And so I think the negative is, although, you know, it's always good to see new people coming into the industry, when the market kicked back in again, yes, all that talent had gone and they've moved on to other businesses or even out of recruitment. We then had to replace them with rookies. And whilst I was a rookie 19 years ago, it was very different to what it's like now, you know. And the issue I have with kind of the negativity that it's brought is that those rookies are just being challenged to hit financial targets and make some money rather than actually focusing on the relationships that they're trying to build, which take time, and therefore you can't focus on money. You've got to have a blend. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of new people join the industry through the pandemic, because as you said, we had people leave. And, you know, I remember when I started, and you probably, when you started as a rookie, had the same thing. There were so many role models in the office I joined that had been in it for years, you know, cut their teeth, and you could look up to them. And yes, some of them were great. Some of them maybe had some bad habits, but you had this sea of experience around you to sort of like learn from. Now, a lot of rookies joined, and everyone knows I'm all for rookies, right? But they joined in a time where recruitment was a lot easier, and now it's not. It's gone back to normal, and it's challenging, and that's what it's like. But unfortunately, as you've sort of alluded to there, they've not been given the training, the support, the guidance to understand how fucking important relationships are. So yeah, they're very transactional. Very, very transactional. It's not always their fault because they're not helped to do that. But yeah, it's a problem.
It is, and I feel like as well they're not given the training or the opportunity to probably develop their own personal brand on LinkedIn either, which I think is a great place for recruiters to be, to show their value, you know, and to kind of just allow people to have some trust in them before they start recruiting for them or with them on their career journey. I just think rookies are brilliant, you know, like you and I said, like we were there, but we did have so many people around us giving the guidance, and you know that look and feel and see and hear. I think that was what was missing in the
Yeah,
pandemic. Obviously, lots of businesses had to move to home working to make it work. I get it. But what that meant was is that your rookies were sat at home not learning from people and not hearing how they had a conversation, developed a conversation, because you know it's difficult trying to get information out of people. You need to learn as to how to develop it into an actual chat and not just a question answer business development call or conversation with a candidate, a job seeker. I don't know. Yeah, so that's my
yeah.
negative. Shall we move on to some positives? Because I think there's
Let's do
so many
positive.
positives that came from the pandemic. And I think embracing automation was one of them. You know, kind of recruiters can be really bombarded with admin. So embracing the right type of automation, but also for businesses, kind of like how they do their recruitment, like using video interviews in the first stages now, which
Yeah,
speeds everything up. Onboarding processes, just even how you manage your candidates' onboarding paperwork when they've joined your business, using e-signatures for everything. I think that's brilliant. Flexible working for me is still a massive one because the clients of mine that have
huge
adopted
for our
it,
industry.
huge. They have a wider talent pool. It's that simple. I can say to a hiring business, if you're hybrid, your talent pool is this size. If you're on site, well, you're reducing it by at least 50%. So are you prepared for that? And the answer is always, well, I want the people that want flexible working. Well, offer it then. It's that simple, you know. So I
Yeah. I
feel
think that's one of the biggest ones, isn't
it
it? And
is.
also how we worked. Like
Yeah.
I was an anomaly, right? I worked for an agency where we worked from home
Oh, wow.
years before the pandemic, to the point where people I knew in the industry were like, "What the fuck? You work from home? You know,
Yeah.
like you're given the trust."
Yeah.
So it showed this industry you can do this job remotely and you
Mm.
can do it flexibly, and it's given a
Yeah.
lot more people, especially people with kids,
Mhm.
access to an industry or able to work in a more
Mm.
flexible way. So I think it's benefited our clients, like you've
Yeah.
just said, our candidates, but us as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think my last one really, and I love this because it's always the way in which I've operated and was, you know, went through training all those years ago, and it's that people first approach. And I feel like that's what businesses have adapted to. So there's more empathy for people's different needs. There's more understanding around people not being able to just, you know, book a holiday for an interview. There's loads of I just think now it's people first, process follows. And that's what's really important. The amount of my clients that have adapted, they're the ones that are winning. They're winning when it comes to
Yeah.
attracting talent. It's that simple. If you're still working as you did in 2019, more fool you. It's that simple.
Feels like another world looking back. I always find it really strange. You know, when you see like a clip on the TV from 2019 or whatever, or you watch an old video on your phone, from like
Yeah.
2019, and you think, oh my God, like that was before COVID. We had no idea what was around the corner, like what was about to happen. I find it so strange.
Definitely.
Like it's like another world.
Oh, absolutely. I've got my little boy's birthday this week, and obviously having friends around, barbecue, going out, doing stuff. In the pandemic, when I think back, I made a balloon arch for the first time. You know, watched YouTube, didn't know how to make a balloon arch. We had a big celebration in the garden on our own. To think now how different it is, there's just, yeah, gosh, there's so much more opportunity if businesses are, and people and individuals are open to embrace everything that's come from it. And
Mm,
yeah, flexible working, automation, speeding up your hiring process, not having stupid amounts of interview processes that literally just draw things out. And if I'm being brutally honest,
not needed, completely
which people are,
unnecessary.
yeah, they're not needed. No.
No, and I was, in 2020, I was still working for the agency I used to work for, and we supplied the pharmaceutical industry. So
Right.
once we had a bit of a lull, we picked up again. So my pandemic experience, when a lot of people were like on furlough and in the garden sunbathing, I was in this room, pale as a ghost,
Yeah.
working all the time.
Yeah.
Um, we had to adapt. We used to do in-person assessment centres with our clients for our candidates. We had to
Yeah.
move it online onto
Yeah.
Teams, and adapt and streamline everything. And yeah, I think you're right. I think
Yeah,
it sort of showed people, oh, actually, we don't need to do all those other things we were doing before. We could just do it this way
yeah,
instead. And it's more
exactly.
cost effective and it's quicker.
Exactly. I feel like, there's in-face, is that the right word? In-person meetings are still hugely valuable and I love them, but speed up the process by doing a Teams meeting first or whichever platform you need to use. And I just like virtually meeting candidates. It wasn't really done before. You had to meet everyone face to face, which really lengthened the
Yeah, we did.
process. I meet people virtually now. It's that simple. And I will meet them. Of course I will. We'll go and grab coffee. But sometimes it's just easier. People will chat to me at seven in
Time
the
is of
morning.
the essence.
Exactly. Yeah. People
Because
have
sometimes I was
lives.
traveling to Manchester to meet some of my candidates, and
Yeah.
that's not a quick journey for me. So yeah, jumping
Yeah.
online and doing it
Yeah.
that way, is a
Exactly.
lot quicker.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to move on to our next one because again, this is a meaty topic, and we did delve into this. We got really going on this, didn't we, before we
I
went
do wonder
live?
if this one might offend people.
Well, it's recruitment uncensored, so don't worry about that. It's fine. But everyone's going to have this. This is an opinionated question. Like loads of people have got their beliefs. It's a belief
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like what do you think? Does having a niche, and actually, if you're watching, add in what you think in the comments. It's interesting to
Yeah.
see what people tally up with. But um, like for you, does having a niche provide that better service to both your clients and your candidates? What do you think?
I think quite simply, yes. Like I'm pro niche. I've been a niche recruiter since almost day one, and I think I was quite fortunate that the role I was in as a temp then moved me into an agency where they needed a recruiter in that field. So it just snowballed. And, I've been a finance recruiter for 19 years and I love it. I'm so passionate about it. And there's not a situation that a client or a candidate can put me in where I can't challenge them on what they do day to day and know if someone's fluffing me. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from being a niche is that I am so confident in the roles that I'm recruiting because it's all I've ever known. And don't get me wrong,
Yeah,
every now and again I step out of it because a client needs me to help them in a different area. But the knowledge that you have is second to none. I truly don't
yeah,
believe that a generalist recruiter could fill a role that I specialize in as quickly or as efficiently and as effectively as I can. Now, people might disagree with me, and I'm sure there's some, and I'm not saying that generalist recruiters aren't brilliant at what they do, but you don't have my network. I've been building it for 19 years. And, people might not like me being so direct about that, but I'm the one that can give real insights every day to my client base and to my candidate base because I work in that market every day. Every day.
yeah. And I think when you've got your niche, you are more aware of things like the trends,
Absolutely.
the different things going on. I used to find I had a niche as well. So initially I probably had a broader niche. So in my first agency, engineering and
Yeah.
IT. IT was very minimal. It was mainly engineering,
Mm.
but it's manufacturing in South Wales. So it's,
Yeah.
quite specific. And then I went into pharmaceutical sales and worked with putting graduates into pharmaceutical sales. So that's
Yeah.
quite niche, really. It's
It
very
is. Yeah.
one sort of role.
Mm.
But yeah, I knew, like you were saying, then the confidence. I knew any other agencies up against me who maybe did experienced and grads or did pharma and other
Yeah.
areas, or there was a lot of agencies up against us that did general sales for grads, just sales anything.
Yeah.
I knew they didn't know what I knew about this role, about
Mm.
what it takes to get into it, how to help the candidates. That and confidence takes you a long way
Yeah.
in this job. I think like
It do. Yeah.
it helps you win clients, it helps you work better, place jobs.
Mm.
So personally, I'm pro niche. I think it's more fun,
Oh,
but some people might
yeah.
disagree.
I agree. It is more fun. You get to build some really fantastic relationships and with candidates that don't only sit as your candidate, but then move to be your client. And they come back to you because of your knowledge, and don't get me
Great for
wrong.
BD.
Yeah, for me, niche will always win. So if there's any recruiters out there who are starting off thinking, do I go niche or do I go in a generalist agency? my advice would be always to niche down. And if you can find something that you're actually interested in, I was lucky, I fell into a recruitment business that needed a finance recruiter after being a finance person as a temp for 12 months. So it worked brilliantly for me because I'd already got a level of understanding. So it clicked really quickly. There's a lot to learn when you niche, because I think you really need to prove your knowledge. You cannot skate the surface. You can't skim things. In my world,
you need to learn from your candidates.
Yes.
You need to listen and learn and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, you need to invest that time in really sort of knowing your shits, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need to know it so that if someone challenges you, you don't come unstuck. You can actually, the best people to learn from, like you say, though, are your candidates. Everyone wants to talk about what they do, so let them learn. And it needs to be not seen as a waste of your time, if that makes sense. You need to
Back to
value.
relationships.
Yeah,
Because if you are
exactly.
listening and asking questions and letting them talk about themselves, you're honing in on the relationship anyway. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think as well, it's not being afraid. If a client says something to you, don't be afraid to, when you don't know and you want
Mhm.
to know, to say, look, that went over my head then. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, so I was
Absolutely.
working with managers that were heavily working in the NHS. The NHS is so complex, like the
Yeah.
structure, everything. And look, there were things I didn't know that the client wasn't going to expect me to know. Like, they don't
Yeah.
expect you to always know as much as them. So sometimes you can learn from the client as well. It's better to be honest when
Absolutely.
you don't know
Yeah, yeah.
something, and then you'll know it the next time.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what makes it interesting, is that you are always learning. And each business does each of the roles that I recruit for, sometimes quite differently because of their sector or their specialism. And I just think you're always evolving then. So it isn't boring by having a niche. It's actually more
No.
interesting. And you become the go-to person in your marketplace if you're lucky. If you utilize that niche well enough, you will be that person that is thought of for being a finance recruiter or a engineering recruiter within. You can niche down within niches. It can become so specialist. I think there's so much opportunity. I also think, as a recruiter, when I was growing in the industry, it was actually far easier to sell myself. I'm a specialist finance recruiter. That was an
Mm,
easy sell, in my opinion. People were drawn to that rather than saying, well, one day I recruit this, the next day I recruit that. Because you and I spoke about this in the green room. If my roof
yeah.
needs fixing, I don't try and do it myself because I know I'm going to mess it up. Like even
And
down
you
a
wouldn't go to a generalist. Well, you might do, but it's risky finding somebody that does a bit of everything around the house. Whereas if you go to a
yeah,
roofer,
exactly. Yeah,
hopefully
because
you would hope you're in good hands.
yeah, you would hope, because we said this, didn't we, in the green room, is that you could pay for something, it's poor quality, then you're going to have to go back to the original person you thought about that was more expensive to actually pay them to do the job
The
well.
saying, pay cheap, pay twice. That's the saying, isn't it?
There you go. Yeah, pay.
But it's
Yeah,
true.
it
But I
is
think on the
true.
niche thing, something came up for me then that I thought actually it's important to highlight for the more newer consultants watching. Sometimes I think people get mistaken that they don't like recruitment when they're new to it, but actually sometimes you're in the wrong niche. So
Oh,
you
yeah,
might be working a niche that just doesn't excite you. And
yeah,
actually
definitely.
switching to a different niche, something that makes you really passionate, excited,
Yeah.
solves all the problems,
Oh,
because
100%.
sometimes that is what it is. It's not that the recruitment isn't right for you. It's just not a niche that is very interesting for you.
Yeah, and I remember interviewing girls to join my teams over the years, and interviewing them thinking that they would be for one role, but actually on meeting them realized that they wouldn't suit that niche and they needed to switch into something else, or they just weren't right for my business. So I think not being afraid, like I couldn't do technical sales recruitment, I couldn't do IT recruitment. I've not got an interest in it. It's not something that actually I think, oh yeah, I want to get to know that.
Yeah.
But equally, I think it is hard to find out what you'll enjoy. So try and bring it back to something personal. Like me, was that
Yeah.
job that I took. I was lucky, I think. Whereas, yeah, niching down could be a challenge, but don't be afraid to kind of explore options for niches before you just jump into a recruitment role.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Mm.
Well, no one kicked off in the comments, so I don't think we've upset anybody yet. But people might watch it later and think differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I wanted to come on to this one because I know this is a massive thing for you, and
Mm.
I talk about this a lot with people I work with, and it really pisses me off, to be honest with you, when the people don't care or even know really what their value is as
Yeah.
a recruitment business,
Mm.
as a consultant. So how do you add that like sort of real value in your business? And then obviously it filters out then, doesn't it, to your candidates and clients?
Yeah, of course. If I'm being honest, I think we've touched on some of the points already, and I think it's that insight piece is really important. You know, that I'm not just there to be their recruiter, to be the person that finds them an individual, but I want to be the person that they come to when they're not even recruiting, but they're thinking about what it looks like in 6 months. You know, so they want to know what the market position is like. They want to understand even little things, but a lot of recruiters don't do this. Like, what's changed in the benefits world these days? So what
Yeah,
benefits do
salary
people
stuff.
want? Yeah, like if I'm going to come to market, what's going to make me an attractive business over someone else that you're recruiting for? I can give them the honest answers, you know. And salary benchmarking is a huge thing, and not enough recruiters do it. You know, if you work for a big recruitment firm, you probably have a salary survey that goes out every year. Whereas I make mine quite specific to the local areas that I work in, as well as the niches, so that people truly do get a flavour for what they should be paying, and equally what's inflated. But I also
Yeah,
do the same. I do the same for my candidate network. Um, Building out of that, the insights piece is actually being honest. Too many recruiters kiss their candidates' arses, if I'm
well, they
honest.
don't consult.
No, no, they don't consult. They're not interested in being honest with them and actually giving them real sound advice. You know, I had a candidate not long ago interview for a role, and he'd just come out of a business, in fairness, that it was quite, you know, it was quite toxic, it was quite negative
Yeah,
for him, but he took that into his interview, he didn't let it go. And thankfully my client was really brutally honest with me, and I thought the best thing I can do for this guy is actually give him this feedback and say, you won't get a job if you do that again. It's that simple. And his dialogue back to me was like, Kerry-Ann, I'm so pleased that you give me that kick up the arse, because I know no one else will do it. You have to be honest. You know, you
yeah.
don't be rude, but you have to be honest. Like,
But it's constructive, isn't it? It's
exactly.
if, you
Yeah.
know, ultimately, if our goal is to place them somewhere and we want to help them get the job they want, it's not going to happen if we don't give them that constructive feedback. How can they
No,
change if they don't know the feedback?
exactly. But you've got to do the same with your hiring businesses as well, because too many
Mm,
hiring businesses come onto the market thinking they're the best place for someone to work. The reality is we know if they are or not, generally from the
mm.
marketplace. If there's I always think giving feedback on the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, the truth. You know, if it's
Yeah,
ugly truth, fine, give it. It's got to be given. What they then choose to do with it is up to them, but you can work together on it. I think another really good way of adding value is giving your clients some kind of, and your candidates really, employer and personal branding, you know, giving them some guidance on how they can set themselves apart, like what their competitors are doing differently. Because a good candidate these days doesn't just go to an employment go to a website of the business that they're looking to be hired by, because let's face it, most businesses are aimed at their customers. They're not aimed at someone that wants to work for them. So
no,
I always send them to like social pages, because the marketing team are generally doing the content for the social pages, so you get a real feel for the people. And I think the businesses that are ahead of the curve are the businesses that show up on these social channels. Like LinkedIn is the perfect place. You can do it on TikTok, on Instagram, wherever you want.
wherever your target market hang out,
Yeah,
that client and candidate, that
yeah,
you know, that's where you want to be. Whether that's Facebook, Instagram, like you say, TikTok, show up there.
yeah. You've got to be a human, haven't you? We had this conversation in the
Yeah,
green room. Showing up as a human. I think one of my strap lines is humanizing the recruitment process. It's massive. You know, we were talking a bit
hmm,
about AI, weren't we? And
yeah,
AI cannot replace the human in any recruitment process or any process within a business. be a human, be kind, be generous with the information that you share. I think that's something I'm hugely passionate about. You know, everything I put on LinkedIn is aimed at helping people navigate either a recruitment process or a job process. And then
that's what makes us so valuable, is
yeah,
the information that
yeah,
we gain on a daily basis
yeah,
from all different sources, that gives us that widespread knowledge, like you said, that helps us give advice on salary, market changes, all that stuff. But I just
exactly.
don't think people capitalize on that enough, really.
No, they don't. And I think there's a massive opportunity there for recruiters, like with career coaching, you know, like I do have a vast amount of experience. So I would class myself as being a career coach, not just a recruiter. And you can monetize those elements of your business if you want to. You know, it's my business, so I pitch it in different ways. And sometimes candidates just want me for career coaching. They don't want it for anything else. And I think, you know, we have so much value to offer as recruiters that goes beyond transactional recruiting, you know, and the
Filling
sooner,
jobs.
yeah, I use LinkedIn daily, but I hardly sell jobs on there. It's more about the fact that this is who I am, whether it's personal or business, you know, trust me and let's work together. But I do it in ways where I'm communicating value to somebody and hopefully helping them, whether it is,
Yeah.
you know, market insights or it is how to be a candidate successfully in the market these days.
Yeah. No. Oh God, I could talk about the value that we
Mm,
bring in this industry. All
yeah, me
there's so
too.
much to it. There's so much to it. But
Mm,
I'm going to come back to you for a top tip, which sort of
mm,
rounds up nicely the show and what we've been talking
okay.
about. But first of all, I'm just going to let you know who is coming on as the next guest. Now, if you are a regular watcher, you will know that quite often on Recruitment Uncensored, at this point, I either have forgotten the date of the next show, or I haven't got what the person's talking about, or the guest isn't confirmed, and I'm sort of giving you very vague info. Well, today everything has changed. I've actually got all the information written down, so I can tell you all that information. Will it continue? I can't promise anything, but I'm going to try my best. Right. So, next guest, another amazing female founder. I've got Gemma Downing coming on, who is director of Mixos. And we are talking about, well, she's coming on to talk about, not me. I'm just going to be asking her the questions. The power of being an 8 out of 10, showing up, standing out, and scaling. So, again, another great topic that we're going to cover on the 9th of July, exactly the same time, 12:30. We'll be going live then. If you can't make it, don't worry, because like this show, it will be streamed afterwards on LinkedIn. It'll be on my YouTube channel. So don't worry if you can't come live, because you can catch up on it. So that is going to be the next guest in the next show. So let me come to you for this top tip. Now, we have touched on this multiple times in the show, but just, you know, focus on building relationships. Just to round it off, and we did, again, we had a massive chat in the green room,
We
basically, didn't
did.
we? But like, why is this your top tip for anyone watching?
I just think that's the differentiator between a quality, trusted recruiter
Yes.
to someone who isn't, because they have the relationships they can call upon. You know, so if a client comes to me with a brief, I know I have a network of candidates I can go to who I trust. They trust me, and they're going to be right for that opportunity. But equally, it's the clients, it's the knowledge piece, isn't it? It's understanding everything about that business that goes beyond what they do. It's about them as individuals, it's about them as people, it's the dynamics of the
Mm.
business. It's, you know, I often say to my clients I could be invited to their Christmas parties because I know their
I
business.
have been invited to some of my clients' Christmas parties. I've
I love
gone as
that.
well.
That's on my agenda for this year. How many clients can I get invited to their Christmas parties?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
that's when you know you're doing something right. When,
Yeah.
like you said, they're coming to you for advice on things.
Mm.
They're talking to you about outside stuff. You know, they're inviting you to think, you know, they see you as part of their business, really, don't they?
Absolutely. We, as recruiters, we should be an extension of their business. We should
100%.
never just be seen as a recruiter. We should be key to knowing what's going on beyond when they need the next hire.
Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's when you get told, you know, that when big stuff happens, the first one to know the news, and that's
Exactly.
when you know you're not an afterthought. You know, you are an
Mm.
important piece of, like you said, an important and integral
Yeah,
piece of the puzzle. So
absolutely.
we've had, let me just, oh, that is a big comment. Right, Natasha, what I'm going to suggest, I have seen your comment, I'm not ignoring it, but because we're now at the end of the show, myself and Kerry Ann will jump on the LinkedIn event after, we'll have a read of it and we will comment and come back to you. So we're not ignoring you, don't worry. But yeah, we've come to the end. Thank you so much for coming on, Kerry Ann. I have
Thanks for
absolutely
having
loved
me.
this conversation. I mean, we probably should have gone live in the green room
Yeah, I think so.
because we basically talked the ear off each other about all these subjects. But yeah, I've gained loads from it. I know the viewers will gain loads from it. If you've
Yeah,
watched and you want to watch it again, as I said, it's going to be on LinkedIn, on YouTube forever, so you can watch it as many times as you like.
yeah,
Um, Definitely we'll get you back on, Kerry Ann, because I've got a feeling there's probably lots of other subjects that we could chew each other's ear off
definitely.
about. But if you've got anything you want to ask Kerry Ann after watching today, anything you'd like to know more about her, anything at all, LinkedIn's going to be the best way to contact you, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Drop me a message and let's pick up because I think just being able to have conversations is where we need to be in recruitment, whether that's peers or people who are just interested in talking. Let's do it.
Yeah, 100% with you on that one. So yeah, pop her a message if you want to chat more. But I'll be back on the 9th of July with Gemma, and the event for that will go out next week. So you'll get notified of it the week before. But yeah, that's us. So thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of
You?
weeks.
Yeah,
I forgot
let's
to
do
tell you if we went live, Kerry Ann. Don't go anywhere. We'll go back in the green room.
it.
But yeah, bye everybody else. Bye.
Okay.